Hello world! How can someone steal your files from your power supply? Why North Korean hackers are exploiting Internet Explorer, and Apple won't scan all your photos after all. That's all coming up in today's roundup of cybersecurity tech news. There's a new technique to covertly exfiltrate files from air-gapped computers, and it involves exploiting a computer's power supply. The method, outlined in a new research paper, allows a hacker to remotely receive files from up to 2 meters away, without using Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or the internet. The technique is called COVIDbit, which is kinda confusing since it doesn't have anything to do with COVID, but anyway, it works based on the fact that all computers use what's called a switched mode power supply. This technology means that the power supply's output voltage is controlled by switching the input voltage on and off at very high frequencies. The rate of switching depends on how much power the computer is consuming, so as the paper explains, by regulating the workload of the CPU, it's possible to govern its power consumption and hence control the momentary switching frequency. And all this switching has the side effect of emanating small amounts of electromagnetic radiation, so you can probably see where this is going. By using this principle, malware on a victim PC would take a file and run it through an algorithm, encoding it into a CPU workload which would then be run on the processor. The power supply would be forced to account for the variations in power consumption by modulating the rate at which it does its switching, which in turn would create a stream of electromagnetic radiation. And given the frequencies that can be generated from this just so happen to be within what a phone's audio chip can detect, the researchers connected a small loop antenna, which looks something like this, to a phone's 3.5mm audio jack. There's a demonstration video that shows a string of text transmitted to a phone behind a wall, so this does work. And by its very nature, this exfiltration method doesn't need admin privileges, and it can run in a VM, which is a big bonus. As for transfer speeds though, well, we're looking at a maximum of 1000 bits per second, so to transmit a megabyte you'd be waiting well over 2 hours. And I guess that's a good segue into the impracticalities of using this in the real world. Firstly, you would have to be within 2 meters of the computer, and since the communication is only one way, the time and date of the exfiltration would have to be predetermined in malware. And this is all assuming the room housing the air-gapped computer isn't encased in a Faraday cage. And we haven't even gotten to the problem of how an attacker would load this malware onto the air-gapped PC in the first place. So this technique is probably never going to see the light of day, but the researcher behind it, one Dr. Mordecai Guri, is actually quite famous for coming up with different ways to exfiltrate data from air-gapped computers, whether it's repurposing a SATA cable to act as an antenna, or encoding data in sound waves emitted in the resonance frequencies of a phone's gyroscope. It seems every few months he releases a new paper on some crazy new technique to exfiltrate data from computers in air-gapped environments, and I look forward to covering his next one. North Korea's infamous hacking group Lazarus has hit a new low. They've been discovered using the recent Seoul Halloween crush to spread malware which exploits Internet Explorer 0 days. And the strange thing is, victims don't even need to use Internet Explorer to be hacked by this. The depraved new operation started with a Microsoft Word document being circulated in South Korea. Disguised as being published by a South Korean government agency, it claims to be an official investigation into the crush, in which over 150 people died. Because the document is downloaded from the internet, it comes with a warning and a button you have to click if you want to enable editing. This has nothing to do with Office macros. That would prompt a different warning, which is a lot more ominous and not something you can just override with a simple click. If a user does hit enable editing, they'll set in motion a series of events. Firstly, the document will download a template file in the background, which is actually a perfectly legitimate feature of Microsoft Word, and whilst it can be repurposed for malicious intent, usually this is to download malware-laden macros, but in this case, the North Koreans had other plans. After being downloaded, the template proceeds to render HTML within the document, and this is where our old friend Internet Explorer makes a cameo appearance. You see, whilst Internet Explorer has officially been deprecated and replaced with Edge, it lives on in the back end of some Microsoft applications, one of those being Microsoft Word, which will render HTML content using Internet Explorer regardless of whatever your default browser is. And it just so happens that there's a 0-day in Internet Explorer's JScript engine. JScript, not to be confused with JavaScript, is a Microsoft-owned scripting language which is all but dead these days, but it's still supported in Internet Explorer for compatibility reasons. The vulnerability allows for arbitrary codes to be executed on the victim PC, which in this case infects the victim with malware. Exactly what that malware is, well, we just don't know, because this campaign was only really investigated after the malicious document was uploaded to VirusTotal a bunch of times, which caught the eye of Google's threat analysis group, prompting them to investigate. By this point, North Korea had discontinued the campaign, and because of this, we don't even know who the actual target of the campaign was. I mean, it's unlikely North Korea would burn a 0-day by just randomly spewing phishing emails. But previously, when North Korea was spotted exploiting Internet Explorer, because of course this wasn't their first time, they were targeting the readers of DailyNK.com, a South Korean online newspaper dedicated to covering issues related to their northern neighbour, usually in a negative light. After North Korean hackers compromised the site in late 2021, visitors were served malicious JavaScript which was capable of exploiting Internet Explorer. Blue light malware was dropped on the targets, which gave Lazarus a backdoor into their systems. In this watering hole attack, the North Koreans were probably hoping to get lucky, infecting high-profile anti-North Korean activists. The game plan might have been something similar in their latest campaign. Apple has just killed their plans to scan iPhones for images of child exploitation. They announced the initiative back in August of last year, a new iOS feature that would scan every photo you have on iCloud for what Apple refers to as CSAM. Idea being, the hashes of thousands of known CSAM images would be stored on every iOS device, with each of your photos being compared against this database. In the case of a match being found, Apple then manually reviews each report to confirm there is a match, disables the user's account, and sends a report to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. This idea, coming from Apple, wasn't half-baked. Their announcement of the plans were launched alongside a white paper where they introduced a new hashing technique capable of matching photos even if they had been cropped, downscaled, or even edited. And there were various privacy safeguards built into the system, like it was done locally on your iPhone rather than in the cloud, and Apple made sure they were only technically capable of reviewing photos if an iCloud Photos account crosses a threshold of known CSAM content. Regardless, Apple of course received a pretty substantial backlash. I mean, they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and whilst this technology might only be used to scan for CSAM today, there's no telling what it could be used to scan for tomorrow. So just 1 month after announcing the plans, Apple put the project on hold, and it's been radio silence ever since then, until a few days ago when Apple announced they were killing the idea entirely. Apple made the announcement alongside the introduction of what they're calling Advanced Data Protection for iCloud backups, which is Apple speak for end-to-end encryption. This is long overdue. In fact, it was previously reported in 2020 that Apple had dropped plans for end-to-end encryption after the FBI complained about it. What caused Apple to reverse their reversal? Who knows? Regardless, it is pretty bad news for law enforcement, who up until now have been able to request copies of iCloud backups straight from Apple. And given iPhones make up half of the US smartphone market, losing access to this overnight is going to make their jobs more difficult. That being said, advanced data protection is not enabled by default. You do have to manually opt in. This video was made possible by Octopart, a website I've been relying on over the last few years in my electronics business. Octopart.com is essentially your component sourcing Swiss Army knife, making it simple to keep tabs on component stock levels in real time throughout a range of distributors, which is pretty important given the current component supply situation. You can also easily grab datasheets and CAD models for components when you need them. The best part is, it's free to use, and Octopart is integrated right into Altium 365. If you want to give Altium a go, you can find your free trial link in the description. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.